everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. It's the final part 4 of the Style Arc Patterns Monty shirt and dress sew along. So today we are doing the hems, the side seams, we're putting the pockets in, and then doing our buttons all down the front. Yeah, finishing everything off. You've already seen the dress on my sister, but I'll pop another little video at the very end of her in it as well, just as kind of a top off of the of the entire process. I hope you guys have enjoyed this sew along, and yeah, Style Arc has given me permission to do more patterns of theirs for sew alongs. So if there is one that you are really wanting to make but seem a little bit more intimidating, yeah, leave it down below and I will take that into consideration for future sew alongs. All right, guys, if you did like this and would like to help support the channel, I do have a coffee count listed down below, which is like a virtual tip jar. All the money from that does go right back into the channel in terms of lighting, equipment, supplies, all that kind of thing for the tutorials and sew alongs. Those are just the more expensive videos for me to produce, and that just really helps out. All right, so that's all I have for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this sew along. We'll be back next week with a tutorial. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Leave any questions you have below and I will answer those as soon as possible. Have a good one, guys. Bye. Okay, so today we are going to finish our Monties. All right, so we should have the dress that we have thus far. Reminder, go ahead and finish off your hems. And I've gone ahead and pressed mine. We're actually going to, I thought it might be kind of fun to do mitered corners at our side vents, just because it's pretty and looks really nice. So I've not serged my side seams or anything yet because we haven't put our pockets in, but I have gone ahead and serged my bottom hems. Now, alternatively, if you don't want to do that, you could go ahead, tuck it under and just give it, you know, a good press as well. So up to you how you want to finish off your hems. You can do a double fold. That's fine. It makes the miter a little more tricky, but it's still doable. So yeah, that's another option. Okay, pockets. You have 4 pocket pieces. I want you to go ahead and finish off, however you want to do that, around the curved edge. Leave the straight edge that attaches to the side body unfinished because it's going to get serged here in just a second. And what we are going to do is find one of our side seams. So here's one of our front side seams. And I will just do one on camera here, and then the other one will be done the same way. Okay, so we want to take one of our pocket pieces, and you want the curved part to be down. And we are lining those up in between our notches. You should have 3/8 of an inch above and below the notch. Okay, so now we're going to sew this into the side seam at 1/4 of an inch. This seam actually gets eventually sewn at 3/8 of an inch, but we're just sewing this in, and then we're going to understitch. But because we want that seam to kind of sit inside, you know, we don't want to see the pocket. Okay, so there it is on the front. Now we're going to find our corresponding back. Oh my gosh, this dress, you can't, not having the side seams done on a garment, especially a longer garment, like a midi length one like this one. And I mean, this is the order you have to do this in just because of the slits and stuff, but holy moly, super annoying. Okay, so here's the corresponding back. And we're going to sew this. Make sure your circle of your pocket's facing down. And it'll be 3/8 of an inch above and below that notch. I'm going to sew it at 1/4 of an inch. All right, Now what we're going to do is we're going to go and finish your side seams separately. So if you have folded up your hem, unfold it, and just go ahead and serge your split. You can kind of like cut off that hard corner there if you want, or just serge off and then kind of, you know, if this is left raw, it's not a big deal. But however you want to do that. And then serge your side seam, catching both the pocket and the side seam. And then you're going to stop or kind of serge off here right about, you know, you can overlap the serging you did for your armhole there if you'd like. Okay. So go ahead and do that really quick. And then on both sides, so you'll be finishing off all 4 side seams, you know, both for the back, both for the front, and I'll meet you back here. All right. Once we have our side seams, that's really close, sorry. Once we have our side seams all nice and serged, we're going to understitch our pockets. Ugh. So with the right side facing up, we're going to do this on all 4 pockets. We're just going to sew right next to the seam line with the seam going towards the pocket. This just helps to tuck everything. All nice and neat. Okay, so we do that on the front, or that was the back. On the back, and also on the front. Again, we want that seam to go towards the pocket. All right, once we've done this, now we are going to finally sew our side seams. Get some order going here. Okay. So we're just going to match up so there's that notch that's about 1 inch below the seam where you've attached your top to your bottom. That's where we're going to start and or stop sewing. And then we're going to pin down to the pocket here. We're just going to leave the pocket loosey-goosey for the time being. Where is the notch? There's the notch. There's the notch. My pockets are a little wonky. That's okay, though. So I've pinned right there at that notch. We're going to sew the pockets together here after a little bit. I cut off a little bit of that, the corner edge of my slit there, which is fine. But just know, you know, there's a notch about 3/8 of an inch below where the top of that slit starts. That's where you're going to start and stop sewing, okay? Not at the top of the slit. My pockets got wonky on the other side too. I'm not sure what happened there, but it's okay. We're going to match up those notches that are there. Okay, so we are going to start. We can start here at the bottom. So we're going to start at the notch that's there in the slit. It's 3/8 of an inch below the edge, and this should come out more. I cut that off because as I was serging on purpose, but so you'll be set in more than 3/8 of an inch at this point because it's right there at the slit. And now we're going to sew 3/8 of an inch up the side seam to the first pocket notch. And then we're going to stop. And then I like to sew at the beginning and ending of those stitching lines again, just to really reinforce it. Okay, then we're going to leave, obviously, the pocket open. Go on past it. And then we will pick back up at this other notch. And we're going to sew from that pocket notch, 3/8 of an inch, up to the notch that's here, which is our underarm. I'm going to do the same thing. Oops, sorry. I'm going to sew that again, just to reinforce that. Okay, so there is our side seam. Now, what we are going to do is sew our pocket. Sorry, I started to get ahead of myself. I didn't mean to make it so dramatic. Now, my pockets, and I kind of expected this, got a little wonky just because of the way they get sewn or serged. So, you know, you obviously want to make sure you're capturing both sides. If your pocket is not sewn at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, that's okay. So we're going to start here. So all the way around. It's supposed to be at 3/8 of an inch, but if your pockets went wonky, don't lose sleep over it. Okay, so we've kind of created like a little corner there. All right, once we have sewn our pocket together, we're going to clip into our seam allowances because obviously the pocket is going to go to the front and we're going to press the rest of the seam allowances open. So I'm just going to cut at a diagonal from here to that stitching line where the side seam and the pocket stitching line meet. Cutting to and not through. The same up here. Okay, so now what this allows us to do is press the seam above the pocket open. And honestly, above the pocket seam, when you press that open, it just makes it perfect for pressing this whole piece back for the sleeve. And then down here, we're going to press this open as well. And then I want you, make sure that your hems are pressed up, because then I want you to go ahead and press your, remember mine is going to be a little, because I cut off a little bit there, but it should be 3/4 of an inch. So go ahead and press your slit open as well, too, okay? It should be 3/4 of an inch there at the bottom. All right, so go do that and then meet me back here and we're making good time. Okay, so this is what everything should look like. I have pressed my slit, so my hem was pressed up and then I pressed my slit over. We're going to miter those in just a second on both sides. Then the seam is pressed open to the pocket. Then the pocket is pressed towards the front. And then this seam is pressed open up to the armhole, okay? Which makes this really easy to finish this off. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the right side of the dress. And we're gonna finish our sleeve off first. So when this is pressed open, it really just makes it want to kind of just fold over, which is why we wanted that finished. So I'm gonna start right about here. I'm actually gonna square it off right under the arm, but I'll do that as I come around. We're going to sew our sleeve, basically. Oopsie. Now, you can press this all the way around before sewing if you want. I personally like to do it this way. So I'm just sewing inside, this is the right side up, and I'm sewing inside the circle. And again, I'm just gonna start kind of in the underarm, but not quite at that side seam, because we're gonna box it off. So I'm just folding it over about 3/8 of an inch. All right, now as we come back around to where, hold on, to where that seam allowance is pressed open right here, I'm just going to continue and then sew across that seam to the other seam, and then just follow it back up to where I started. So it kind of boxes that off a little bit and finishes that off nicely. And once you hit that really nicely with an iron, it presses just beautifully. Okay, so our arm is done. Next, I'm moving my way down the side seam. The next thing I like to do at my pocket, now because your pockets are just kind of floating loosey-goosey in the side seam, which can be really annoying, I like to do a little anchoring tack stitch. I did this on mine and I find it really helped. So here's my pocket opening here, and this is the front this way. So make sure your pocket's going the correct way. And all I'm gonna do is here at the bottom of the pocket opening, right below that, I'm just going to sew kind of like a little bar tack stitch right there. And I'm gonna do it the same at the top. And not only will this reinforce that area where your hand is going in and out, it also helps to keep your pocket going forward, so it's not constantly flipping around like crazy. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do here on the side seam is our mitered corner. Let's get out from under the... All right, so I'm going to show you just one, and then the other three are obviously the same way. Okay, so what we've done here, this is my hem here, and this is my slit. I have folded my hem up and then folded my slit over. It doesn't really matter which, you could fold the slit and then fold the hem. It doesn't really matter. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my snips here and I'm going to cut, I'm wanting to cut the hem and the slit right where they're joining, right at that intersection, just a little bit, just so I can find it again, okay? Now I'm going to unfold everything, and I've got my slit right here and right here. So I'm now going to put them right sides together, match those two little guys up. Okay, and now I love this method because you don't have to have equal, like your slit and your hem don't have to be equal widths. All right, so now I'm going to sew from that point where I've matched those up to, I can see this point right here where I have pressed everything. There should be a point right there. So I'm sewing from that spot to the point, and you can flip it right side just to make sure that everything is lying as it should, and that is not lying as it should. Why is that not lining? Oh, because I did not, oops, hold on. I did not match up my, didn't match up my correct points there. It's hard to do through a viewfinder. Okie dokie. Just gonna unpick that. I like to show you all the mistakes so you know how to fix them. Okay, where's my spots again? There they are. Okay, so I've got one, I don't know where I was over there. I've got one right here and that I clipped, and one right here that I clipped. So those are going right sides together. There is my point. Yes, this looks much better. Okay. And now we sew down. Whew. So now when we flip it right side out, look at that. I mean, it's not a crisp corner at the moment because we need to cut out the bulk, but there we go. That is the mitered corner we want. Okay, so once we've tested that and everything looks good, we're just gonna cut off that bulk like so. And there we go. Give that a good press, and there you have a mitered corner. Okay, you want to do that on the other 3 sides, and I'll meet you back here, and it's going to be time to, well, obviously do everything we just did on this side. On the other side, finish your miter corners, and then we're going to top stitch everything / hem everything down. Okay, time to hem / top stitch. Oh, we are so close, folks. Then it's just buttonholes and buttons. It's so close. Okay, so pick a spot to start. I always like to start in the center of the back hem because we're essentially doing just a gigantic circle. Now, I'm going to top stitch with my wrong side up. Technically, you should be top stitching with your right side up. However, I have a straight stitch machine, meaning my machine does not convert to a zigzag. So the hole in my throat plate is a single stitch hole. It's not a wide space that would accommodate a zigzag stitch. Now, why is this important? It kind of, if you've got the straight stitch machine, your bobbin stitch and your top stitch are gonna look almost identical. The wider one, a lot of times your bobbin stitch can look a little bit less perfect than a top stitch. So, and maybe that doesn't bother you, and that's okay. You know, do what you want, but I am going to top stitch from the bottom, which I guess technically isn't a top stitch, but let's go around the horn here. I did not change my stitch length. I'm still stitching at a 2.5. I find that when I'm doing, you know, shirts and dresses and stuff like that, I don't mind keeping my stitch length the same. Now, jeans, and notice this is going to get narrower through here, my top stitching. I'm totally fine with that as well because it's going to match on both sides. But if I'm doing a coat or jeans, I do lengthen my top stitch. We're going to go across. If you wanted to, you could also sew a bar tack here at the top of your slits if you're worried about those ripping. Okay, when I get up to the front, I'm going to do a 1/4 inch top stitch. The other reason I like to top stitch with this up is that my facing is also up, which is obviously not going to be as shifty as your dress. So if there's any excess fabric, your feed dogs will work in your favor. Now I did already go ahead and press my revere in on my collar just to help it fly nice and flat. I guess technically, because here's the turn up part of the collar. So technically we are top stitching now. Okay, I'm going to, here at the revere, or the notch, I'm going to sew straight in line with that, up, just like you would, so that little zigzag if you were doing a jacket. Ah. Okay, there we have it, stitched all the way around. Oh my gosh, this is so good. All right, so our next step is going to be to put button and buttonholes, and I want to talk about that just a real quick second. I mean, our dress is finished basically. We just need to put, yeah, the buttons and buttonholes, and this is so exciting. Okay, so if you look at the pattern, and this is how it's marked on the pattern as well. Although, if you've been following along for a while, you know I very rarely follow the button placement on a pattern. So as you can see, the buttons start right below the seam there, and they're doing it in sets of 2 all the way down. I don't know. That just, I mean, it's a design choice, but I'm going to do mine evenly down. So I'm going to start with my first one right below that seam, and I'm going to evenly space them down the front of my dress. And I use a Simflex for that. You guys, any of my other sew-alongs, you've seen that I use that. It just helps you to evenly space your buttonholes all the way down. I'm not sure how many buttonholes I'm going to put in yet, but I will let you know. But I'm going to meet you over at my other machine. And yeah, let's put on some buttonholes. Okay, so this is a Simflex, and it's like an accordion. It just spaces it nice and neat. Now, I like to mark the bottoms of my buttonholes, so I backed it off. My buttons are 1/2 inch in diameter, so I've backed this off like 3/4 of an inch. I want to give myself, I don't want to run into that seam line with my buttonhole, and that's where I started. And then I just line up my Simflex here. It's not all the way open. And then I just went down my dress. It's not all the way open. I have only one hand. Anyway, but they line up. And so, and then I just mark with a erasable pen all the way down, and I'm going to be putting 8 buttons onto the front of this dress. So there you have it. That's how I mark my buttonholes. So let's go over to the machine and sew some buttonholes. All right, so here are my buttons here. I'm on my home machine here, and I'm putting it onto a automatic buttonholer, which uses this foot. And what I do is I put the button that I want the size back here. I don't like to get it too tight. I like it to have some wiggle room, so that the button can easily slide in and out of the hole. And then I put it onto my machine like so, and then I lower this little lever down. By the way, I got 144 of these buttons for like $3 from WAWAK. It is really a deal. They are linked in the description box below. Such a deal. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm going to line up. There's a little, oh, I just lost my button. See? Maybe don't leave it that. Oh, for love. Come on. Little too loose. Too tight. There we go. Just right. All right, there is a these 2 little dot or lines, and I'm lining up the my dot here to that line, which is really hard for me to do. This machine is harder for me to get at. Where is it? There it is. And I'm putting it at lining it up with the 1/2 inch mark over here on the side. Thread there I need to deal with. Okay, and I'm just going to sew that buttonhole. Oh. Okay. Hold on, this is bothering me. All right, so and I just realized that that one messed up. Dang it. I have a really hard time with this machine filming because I can't get around it easily. All right, well, there's my buttonhole. Clearly, I've missed a little spot there. Not sure what happened, why it jumped. So I'm just going to do a second buttonhole right over that first one. And then I'm just going to go right down the front, and that's how my buttonholer works. Normally a little better than that, but yeah, not a big deal. So I'm going to do all 8. And then I'll meet you at the sewing machine because I like to put a little bit of fray check on the inside of my buttonholes, both on the front and back, just to keep everything from fraying. And then we'll cut them open and then mark for our buttons so we can sew this on. All right, so my buttonholes are all sewn. This is some Dritz fray check. It's clearly a well-loved bottle. It's almost empty. Anyway, I just go and I put a line of it right on the center of every buttonhole. And I do this on the front and then I do it on the back. And once I have put, once I've put a line in the center of the buttonhole on one side, I set that over there, then go through. You guys have seen me do this before. Sorry, I'm holding the camera this time. And I just iron, and that kind of dries it and sets it, but it makes it not crispy. You know, sometimes that fray trick can get kind of crispy. This was a trick I learned in the bridal workshop. Okay, I'm gonna need my second hand so I'm not ironing in wrinkles. But anyway, I just do that on the front and the back, and then I'm going to cut those open and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, I really apologize for all the shadows here. Okay, once I have done the fray check, this is a buttonhole chisel, and I will leave it linked down below if you're interested. But all you have to do, I have a self-healing cutting mat back here, but all you do is just take it in the center, press down, and then you've got your buttonhole cut open. So much easier than trying to cut open your buttonhole and then going up through the garment and that kind of thing. All right, let me cut all of these open and then I will show you how I mark for my buttons. Okay, now we just have to sew our buttons on. So the way I like to do this is I match up with wrong sides together, my front edges. You've seen me do this if you've watched the channel any other sew along where I've put buttons on anything. And once I've, I want my seams obviously to match up really nicely. So once I've got all of those where I want them, I just stick a pin in the middle of the buttonhole and it goes through to the other side. And sometimes I'll even, once I've done a couple, go down here to the bottom because I want my hems to match. And then once I've got pins through those holes, I flip it over. Oh boy, hold on, that one got away from me. Well, for heaven's sake. Okay, flip it over, got some fluff on there. Take a, just a pin that'll disappear with heat or air or whatever. And I'm just going to mark right where that pin comes out. And that is where I will sew on my button. Okay. All right, so then on those little pink dots, I will sew my button on, and I will meet you at the mannequin with a finished dress. Folks, she's finished. The Monty shirt dress. So good. Okay, I've got a little tip real quick. So the buttons I put on obviously have some brown in them. I sew those on not with the thread that matches the dress, but thread that matches the buttons. So I sewed those on with brown thread. There's 8 buttons. Yeah, everything looks really great. I am going to put a tag in it. I don't think I'm going to sew a tag in. I have iron-in tags, so I'm going to iron a tag into the back of the neck. And yeah, I'll show you my sister in it now. Thanks, guys. I will see you next week for a tutorial.